Welcome back to Balance Redefined podcast. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and I have such a wonderful guest today. I am thrilled to have her share with us today wisdom and understanding about a topic that is just slamming our nation. We are happy to have Wendi Christensen here today with us. Hi, Wendi. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Connie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We wanted to let you know just how wonderful she is. She is a licensed clinical social worker and has over 24 years of social work experience. She's ranged from an ER crisis worker to being a school social worker to having 15 years of client private practice. And she also, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but she also has started and piloted the first Hope Squad. It's a school-run suicide prevention program that is just seeing tremendous success. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's just jump right into this really hot button topic of suicide. What in this whole topic, I know it can be this sort of difficult, fragile, tender-footed thing. I know as a parent, there's this misconception, I think, sometimes of if we talk about suicide, then we're planting the seed that they're going to start thinking about it. What's your thoughts on even broaching how to talk about this topic of suicide?
That is a great question, Connie, because I think a lot of parents are faced with that issue, especially when you look at national statistics. Suicide rates have gone up nationwide. It's the third leading cause in our nation now. And in our state, which is Utah, suicide rates among kids ages 10 to 17, it's actually the number one cause of death, which can be really, really alarming. But I think it's really important to look at suicide is not an option, but that's kind of what our kids are hearing nowadays. So that's why I think it's so important to talk about the subject and not just to ignore it. It has to be a subject that's talked about, but it has to be in a positive light, not just a negative. Because suicide can be commonplace or an acceptable response, but it doesn't have to be. People need to communicate stories of hope and recovery and resilience, but if we're not talking about it, our kids aren't going to know. There's a huge myth out there that if we talk about suicide with our kids, that it's actually going to cause them to think more about it, that you're planting that seed in their head. And that is a huge myth. It actually opens it up for them. If there is somebody who's thinking about suicide and you ask them, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? It actually relieves a lot of stress for them. It's such a huge relief and anxiety relief for them. It's like, oh, somebody hears me. Somebody wants to talk about it.
Yes, and it's not taboo, and I'm not in this by myself. I can see what you're saying where I love what you mentioned about it's become commonplace that it's an option. And if we as parents don't talk about the other options and say, this isn't an option, this is just not, it's not going to take you anywhere, but there's lots of other options that can help you. I love that concept. And then not being afraid to open that door. This kind of reminds me of sort of talking about sex education, that parents just have to first get so comfortable with this in our own skin. And even if we're not, braving that, being able to say to our kids, hey, I don't know how to talk about this well, but I want to, and I want to know what you think about this and what your thoughts and feelings are. So let's go down that path for a minute. As a parent, if someone out there, including myself, is thinking, how do I talk about this? Like we're barbecuing. So, hey, about that topic of suicide, right? So how do you set that environment? How do you bring that up? How do you broach this topic with your child?
Great question. I think you have to realize, first of all, it's being discussed. We think that kids aren't talking about it, but they are. They actually did a study with Intermountain Healthcare last year to see how youth view suicide. And what they discovered is that if there's anxiety or there's depression, kids automatically think suicide. And that's why we need to talk about it, because they need to understand if they're experiencing anxiety, which we all do, or if they're experiencing some symptoms of depression and you're starting to notice it, that there's other things that you can do, that suicide doesn't have to be an answer, that we can talk about supporting them through trials. If being an example, when you're having a trial, when you're struggling yourself, how do you get through it? How do you push through and get through stressful moments or a traumatic event or situation? What are your coping skills? And you can talk to your kids about that. You can teach them resiliency. You can teach them, how do I get through stress? What are some things that I can do to get through stress? How do I handle a situation when somebody's bullying me and I feel less than? How do I respond to that? You're teaching them just some simple skills, and you're not going to want to, you don't want to be afraid to talk to them and bring up the subject, because like I said, they're talking to their peers about it already. It's already out there. It's all around them. And that's why that myth about, if I talk to my kid about it, it's going to plant the seed. If they're not suicidal, guess what? They're going to say, no, I'm not thinking about that, but I am feeling a little down lately. I am feeling like I'm having some struggles. My friends, they're not talking to me. Or they may feel like they're isolated, or somebody's being mean to them at school. You're just opening the door for communication. And that's really going to be the biggest key, is being able to communicate with them. And as the more that you can open that way for them to talk, to feel comfortable talking about tough subjects with you, the more resiliency you're going to build in them.
I love that. And I love the point that you make of us modeling how to deal with stress. And I know there's going to be parents out there going, but I don't handle it well, right? So, oh no, now I'm messing them up even further. No, I know for myself, and I know what you advocate is that vulnerability, is saying to your child, I'm trying to deal with stress better. And guess what? These are the things that I have found that help me. What have you found that helps you? Because your way as an adult of dealing with it might be different than a teenager. I know that I go to prayer and scripture, but my 16-year-old is going to go binge watch some music videos for a bit to try to feel better, right? For a little bit. But it still comes down to, I love that you make the point, open the door for this discussion, for chatting. That means putting phones down and looking eyeball to eyeball, even if it's just 5 minutes. And then I love this, the share the struggles. I know when I went through my divorce, I wanted to walk that line of, how much do I tell my children? How much do I open up to them about this so that they're not worried? They don't take it on themselves. And I did find that when we'd have our weekly kind of on the bed chats, and I would tell them, if there's something serious that I need to make you aware of, I will. The rest of what you might see is me going through a natural process. So if you see me praying for half an hour, or if you see me with tears in my eyes, and I'm not, my usual self, that's okay. I'm going to tell you, I'm feeling down today, but it's okay, because we're going to go outside, we're going to play some badminton, it's going to be all right, and I'm going to be able to move through it. So what I'm hearing from you is, don't hide away from that, not unduly burdening them, but giving them those tools of saying, look, I went through this hard thing at work today, and this is what I'm doing about it. And then they can kind of take heart. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You want to support them through their failures and setbacks, and you have those. We all have those, but look at it as opportunities for learning and growth for them. Look, I've had setbacks, I've had difficulties, but this is what I learned from it. This is how I grew from it. This is the experience that I had. But absolutely right, not putting the burden on them, but helping them to see that you can get through it. And I think it's really important too with kids to praise them for their hard work and their perseverance, not just their easy successes and good grades. A lot of times we tend to, you did so good on that, that's awesome. But you know what? That test was really hard. And I love that you studied so hard. You put in so much work. You may not have gotten an A on it, but you persevered. And I love that about you. I love that you're such a hard worker. Recognizing these great positive attributes that they have that are getting them through tough things, and that they can do that. They can persevere and get through these hard times and hard moments in their lives.
I love this. In fact, this is so resonating. One thing that I learned, especially this last year, was helping them see their growing milestones, because they can't see it. I can't see my own, right? But being able to tell them, you know what? I know that you did not like this teacher. I know you did not like this class, but I'm so proud of the way you handled that. I'm proud of the way you handled the way he talked to you about your test and about the way you dealt with the class, and helping them to see that they were learning coping skills along the way, and praising the coping skills and not necessarily focusing on a very positive, secure outcome. That them learning these tools is the more important thing than any given outcome. And I think that's what we want to talk about next, is creating this resiliency in our children as a preventative measure. We're going to talk about what we do when we see signs and what happens if we see that in our children. But first, let's kind of go down this road since we're kind of there. What are some other tools that we can give our kids to create that resiliency?
I think it's important for them to start learning when they have a stressful or a traumatic event, um, to get in touch with their own body, to realize what they're experiencing. So it's some to be able to self-regulate their emotions. If they're feeling overwhelmed and they don't know what to do because they've had a huge breakup, because that's one of the warning signs, is when there's a huge shift, there's isolation, they've had a huge shift in one of their relationships, or they're feeling isolated at school, or they're excluded, they're feeling like they're a failure, whether it's a breakup or school, or maybe it's sports that they are going through. They need to understand that those types of things are okay. So they need to realize, be aware of their body. When I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling down, this is what's happening. And this is these are some things that I can do. Don't be afraid to say, I'm feeling sad today. I'm struggling and I don't know where to put these emotions. Because if you can create a safe spot for them to come and talk to you about how they're feeling and those emotions, and realize that, like we were talking about, this is very normal. This is a really normal response. You can get through it because I see your resiliency that you've got. Talk about their well-being. Talk about support that they've got around them. Kids do really well when they see that parents are a support system, teachers are a support system, community, ecclesiastical leaders, they've got so much support around them. Help them to realize that they're not alone, because one of the suicidal warning signs is, like I said, isolation. They pull away, they don't want to be around people, they don't want to talk, they don't want to engage in things. So helping them to see that that support system, that community around them is so very, very important, and building that strong community of support around them.
That's so powerful. And I love, my daughter and I actually had a conversation about this isolation the other day. She is more of an introvert. And I think it's important for parents to recognize that every child has their personality, but what it sounds like you're saying is when you notice a shift. So my daughter likes to spend time alone. She draws, she does things like that. But we've also talked about, okay, she likes to get out with friends every couple of days, or she'll come up and we'll chat during the day. And so we have our connection time and things like that. So what I'm hearing you saying is like a sudden withdrawal or a more marked withdrawal, and then that emotional shift to go with it. And I love that you're bringing up helping them to identify the signals themselves, their body shifts, their emotional shifts, helping them understand the scale that, I don't know about you, but I've heard some different youth saying, man, I'm so depressed. I just didn't want to get out of my room last night for an hour and a half, right? Well, that's life, okay? You have a tough day and you just kind of be like, oh, I don't even want to deal with stuff, right? Helping them understand on a scale of 0 to 10, how much is this impacting your quality of life? Like there's going to be this wave that goes up and down, and that's life. We just kind of ride the wave and we use our coping skills and we process those emotions and we use words like that, right? But helping parents and kids to understand when there's a marked shift, I think this is so key, because then they can feel that shift and then they don't feel a free fall of like, oh no, I don't know what this is, and then start numbing, but they actually can articulate it to a loved one, to a parent or a friend or a leader or something like that.
Absolutely. I think it's tough for kids nowadays to go to an adult and say, hey, I don't feel very good. I feel like nobody likes me. It's because adults are busy. We have become so much busier. And then you put in their social media. Not only are kids on social media, adults are on their phones all the time. And if you're not plugged in with your child, it's going to be difficult for them to come and approach you. So I think that's another key factor to build resiliency, is be plugged in to your kids. Pay attention to them. Put your phone down. Start listening to them. You know, sometimes we think as parents, oh, that's so frustrating. Like, here's all the drama. Here comes the drama. And we tune it out and we shut it down, rather than stopping and going, look at me. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. I know this is important to you and I want to hear what you're saying. Even if, as a parent, you may think that it's not a big deal, it's a big deal to them. And because it's a big deal to them, it's important to stop, to listen fully, to not be trying to do 3 things or 4 or 5 things at once, but to give them that eye contact like you were talking about, and that attention, so that they feel like somebody is listening to them. We find that teens that are suicidal, they will go and tell a friend rather than an adult. And the problem is that these friends don't know what to do and how to respond to the suicide, to suicidal comments or statements. They don't know what to do. And so often it goes unreported.
That is incredible. And you know, what you're saying is just so true. I know Gary and Joy Lundberg, New York Times bestselling authors, they talk about listen, 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 and understand. That is the definition of validate. And you are so right. In fact, I was just reading an article the other day about the number of children's drownings increasing in summer because parents are on their phones. And before we start feeling less than, maybe taking it as a moment to take a self-inventory and maybe even have a family night where we talk about, you know what, guys, I think this is kind of interrupting our connection. So what are some ground rules that we can all set, not just for kids, but for adults as well, that we can set those ground rules on that? I know years ago, I had read an article of a daycare center that they actually posted a notice on the door to the parents that were picking up the kids and said, get off your phone. Your child has been drawing a picture and been waiting to see you all day, and you can't even stop looking at your screen. I mean, we're talking, it was blasting, right?
Wow.
But how beautiful that someone stood up and said it and reminds us, because I know that happens to me too, where I'm going around and and I'm thinking, oh, I need to respond, and I'm talking or I'm unloading the dishwasher and I'm not giving them my eyeballs. And I think that's a great suggestion you have, is just even starting there. How many times have I looked in my kids' eyes today, like looked in their eyes and listened to what they're saying, valuing that it matters to them, even though it seems maybe potentially trite to me. I love that piece of advice.
Mm-hmm. And it's even interesting, touch is another one. Our kids, they don't get enough touch in the day. And they've actually found that an 8-second hug can be so invaluable with your kids. There's research and statistics that show if you give an 8-second hug to your child, that can make huge differences in their brain waves and those neural pathways because they're not being touched enough. So it's fun. My kids and I, every night, as we're getting ready to go to bed, we have this joke, but they love it. I'll say, okay, everybody gets their 8-second hug, and I'll count out loud their 8 seconds. But it's amazing how your kids just melt into your arms because they need that touch. We're so busy throughout the day that they don't have that time where they can really connect. So it's not just they need to talk to you, but they also physically need to connect to you. And the more connections that you have with your kids, the more they're going to open up and talk to you when they are having difficult moments and difficult times. And you are modeling that just by a simple hug. You're modeling, what can I do when I'm having a hard time? And I think another thing when we were talking about social media and modeling the physical touch is also having quiet time, just some quiet moments, teaching them just breathing. Simple breathing is such a huge resiliency thing that you could teach your kids, to just be mindful and breathe. Hey, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling panicked, we're feeling stressed. Let's just all take a moment to just breathe. Because as you increase that oxygen to your brain, it tells your body to automatically slow down, relax, I can do this. And it's so powerful for kids to do mindful breathing. So that's another thing that it sounds dumb, but it's a wonderful resiliency tip for your kids to learn to deal with stress. Mindful breathing, just take a minute in the day and let's do some mindful breathing, powerful touches, and then connecting.
Oh my goodness, I love those. In fact, I'm just thinking back. We have scripture study at night and it was getting pretty popcorny, like everyone's all over the place or they're sleeping, right? And so it got to such a degree that I was like, we are having 1 minute of quiet time because we could not get quiet to save our necks. And do you know what? It was the best moment ever. And I noticed that when we put that little timer on and we all calmed down, that you're right. There was this sense of getting back to center, that groundedness, and it's all okay. And even though my teenagers rolled their eyes, I think we as parents need to be unafraid of setting the new norm. Having a little sense of humor, saying, yeah, I know, it's goofy, mom. Get with it. No, it's all right. Go with it. But being able to set that new norm and say, we're just going to try it. Try it for a week. Hey, just lay there. 1 minute. It's not that hard. So not being afraid of their response and the reaction, but just moving forward. I love these tips on resiliency because that's really the best starting place, is to prevent it from happening at all. So let's go into, for just a moment, if as a parent we're worried, we see that our child is shifted and we can feel it in our soul, but we're not sure what to say or how to handle it. What are some of the warning signs to look for and some of the things that we can do?
Okay, great question. Some of the warning signs that you will see, we've talked a little bit about them. Isolation being one of them, not wanting to be engaging with the family. There's 3 things that you're generally going to see. You're going to see verbal cues like the words that they say, actions, and then situations that they're in as far as your warning signs. So verbal clues can be direct or indirect. They may say something like, I don't want to be here anymore. I just want to die and never wake up. That's a little bit more of an indirect. I've heard even people say things like, I just wish that I wasn't here. Okay, what does that mean? Ask more questions. What does that mean? Or more indirectly, it could be, I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up. That's a common one that I've heard. But somehow, some way they're communicating things. They might say, I wish I were dead. I'm going to end it all. My family would be better off without me. Who cares if I'm dead anyway? I just want out. I won't be around much longer. Those are pretty direct in your verbal clues that you're getting. So directly and indirect verbal cues, they actually say something. Then you're going to have some actions, maybe some unexplained anger, aggression that you don't normally see and that's not typical of them. Maybe that anxiety and depression is increased. You might see some of that. Now, we all experience that. That doesn't mean that they're suicidal, but it's a warning to go, maybe I need to talk to them about that because I'm noticing this and it's different. So it's opening the door for them. Some other action steps that would be pretty blatant if they are acquiring a gun or stockpiling pills. That's something's going on. If they're collecting pills are starting to disappear. That would be a big, huge warning sign. Giving away prized possessions. I worked with a student one time when I was a school social worker that gave his watch away to his best friend. And it was a watch that he'd gotten from his dad. His friend had no idea what that meant. He didn't know that that was a warning sign, that his friend was trying to give things that were important to him. He wanted to make sure they were passed on. If they've had any suicide previous attempt, huge warning sign, huge flag that something's going on. Some of the situations, relationship stresses, family relationships, or maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, feelings of failure, academics. That's one thing about suicide is it covers all demographics. It doesn't matter age, gender, it covers everything. Social and economic status, rich, poor. I've seen kids that were hugely successful that have completed that have gone and that have killed themselves, which was really sad. They were great students, they were great athletes, and then I've seen kids that have been in really tough situations that maybe didn't have those advantages that it also happened to. So it doesn't matter. It covers the whole gamut. You might also see feeling isolated or excluded, rejection from peers, family, or their community. Sometimes too, it's religion. You might see a sudden interest or disinterest in religion. And that could be because they're trying to pull away from people, or they might have a sudden interest in it because they want to find out what's going to happen after this life. What are the consequences of what I'm going to do or what I'm pondering? Those are going to be some big warning signs. So if you see those warning signs, definitely you want to open up the communication and talk to them. And don't be afraid to ask. Hey, I've noticed this. I've noticed that you're isolating, that you're not engaging with your friends. You're not hanging out. I know that you've had a huge fight with your friend and I'm just really worried. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about hurting yourself or killing yourself? Because the more comfortable we are, even though it doesn't feel comfortable, but even just asking the question is better than never knowing, never asking the question and having no clue where they are emotionally or mentally. At least it opens up the door for them to say, yes, I am. And they'll feel such a relief. And if they're not, they'll say, no, I'm not, but I am struggling and I don't know what to do. Then you can talk and communicate about it.
Oh, I love that. And you add on to those sort of the list of things that you were sharing. I know our son, he had Asperger's and it was just so difficult because the bullying and the different things and the things that we knew about, but things that we didn't know about. And so there's all these different markers, and then you have different personalities that deal with stress differently. I have some kids that are really resilient and others that are very sensitive, highly sensitive natures. And so the ability to deal with those things, they come from the same family, but their ability to cope with that might be different too. So rather than be feeling like on eggshells, it sounds like you're saying just be attentive, which is our system, our environment does not lend itself to being attentive. So it sounds like we have to really carve that out. And I would add, especially for adult children where they're off to college or they're off on a humanitarian service or something like that. I know one of our sons, he tried to commit suicide, and it was a medication related thing. He changed his medication and he was not with us at the time. And the medication, actually, we went on afterwards and saw hundreds and hundreds of reviews that said, this is what happened to my child when they switched onto this medication. And we had no idea. So it turned out okay and everything turned out well. But these other markers, change of medication, or even when they're gone and far away, keeping connected in ways so that you can see and feel if there's been kind of any major shift. And that's still just as important.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important to stay connected to your kids and check in with them regularly. And another thing too is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because medications can be, and it's important to plug into that and to understand the side effects of any medication, especially, antidepressants, anti-anxieties, if that's something that they're on, and have regular checkups with their doctor. Also, another one is cyberbullying. There's so much stuff on social media. There's so much pressure on kids when they're doing Instagram and Snapchat and all these other things that I can't even always follow and keep track of, but they do feel a lot of pressure because we tend to paint the perfect world on our Instagram pages. And kids believe that. They believe that everything is perfect, and they need to see that it's not, and that that's just the way that it's being portrayed on social media, but it doesn't happen that way in real life, that we all go through these experiences. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where we talk about our failures, our stresses, our struggles, and what we do to get through them, and that it's common, and that this just, it really happens, and that what you see on social media isn't always true and accurate. One of the things I follow, I don't know if anyone knows Colin Karchner. I love him. I follow him. But I was watching on his page yesterday, and he said one thing that he promotes is that often kids see these glamorous, wonderful worlds that are on Instagram, when in reality, it's not truth at all. But kids compare themselves. Even adults, we compare ourselves all the time. And when we start comparing, or even bullying, like kids get bullied all the time on social media. They get put down, even if they're being successful. One student that I worked with, she did so well in her academics. She was a star player on our basketball team, but they had a game where she didn't do well. She didn't score the last shot that would have won the game for them. She was attacked left and right by students from her school. And if she hadn't been a resilient student or a resilient person, she would have easily
Fall into that category
quickly. But because she had friends and family, she went to them and said, she was devastated. She said, people are telling me to even kill myself. That
Oh
people
my
were saying that
gosh.
to her. And so she luckily went and talked to family and was able to work through it and work through some of those feelings and emotions that were arising because of all of this bullying that was coming from students from her own school. So you just never know the situations that our kids are being placed in. And that's why it's so important to keep that communication open for anyone. And even, like you said, with adult kids, so important.
I love, and this is a driver that I want for anyone that's just starting to listen to us now. I want that driver to keep being repeated, of opening the door and then being candid that suicide is not an option. There's so many more other options, and that this casual option is being bandied about because nobody hears about what happens after they die, right? But the families are devastated, and the domino effect down to the other kids in the family and all of that is just devastating. And I don't think these teenage kids particularly see that. And I know in some schools are trying to pull back on them. I know in our school we used to have like a Sunday dress day when someone passed and things like that, and everybody would do that. But then they started finding that it was kind of giving them notoriety. And so they had to pull back from that, of just being respectful about it, but saying to kids, sending a message of, this is not a good option. This is not something you want to do. You have a life to live, and you're going to have lots of hard things that come, but it's in the doing and solving and going through it that you become the very person that you want to become. There's no going around that.
Right. We need to know that resiliency and recovery is possible, that help is available, that there are programs and services out there, that media can actually be used as a prevention tool, that mental health, and there's mental health available, there's crisis resources, there's story of hope and recovery. So many people who have felt suicidal survive, and they do well, and they get the help that they need. And so really it's promoting that help, and that there is hope out there. That's a huge thing, because we do hear those stories of completed people who have actually gone through and have killed themselves, but we don't always hear the stories of hope and people who have made it through, that got the help that they needed, that they were able to talk to a mental health, a counselor or a therapist, or maybe they were able to access the resources. There's so many resources that are available out there. And that, I think, is what we need to spread, is that there's hope, there's help, and that there are, that prevention actually works, and that they can be resilient and they can get through this.
Oh, and I love that's a beautiful segue. We're talking about hope and help for suicide prevention to go into this sort of landmark program that you started. Tell us about the Hope Squad and what that looks like.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics. So when I was a school social worker, my boss, Greg Hudnall, who actually is the founder of Hope for Utah, had us research school programs. And at the time, there really weren't a lot. And we spent a year or two researching these school programs. And I had the opportunity of starting the very first school program. It was in Provo, Utah. It was at Timpview High School. And I worked with our school counselor, Monty Marshall, and we decided to get this program up and going. And I remember meeting with these kids, and the goal was to have a peer-to-peer prevention program, because we knew that kids often, when they're feeling suicidal, that they would go to a peer, that they're more likely to interact with a peer and tell them, and that they would be the first responders rather than an adult. So the idea was to train these peers to recognize the warning signs and to know how to respond to a friend, how to refer them. So they're not the counselor, they're not the ones that are helping them through, but they're the support system, and they're the eyes and ears of the school. And these kids were just fantastic. And they are kids that are nominated by their peers to help. And so they have a desire to bring hope and help and resiliency to their peers. As we got going, we decided we need to have a name. We didn't know what to call ourselves. And so one day we took a poll and we put all these names up on a whiteboard, and the one that they voted on was Hope Squad. So that became the name from there on out, was Hope Squad, that they wanted to be the squad that brought hope to all these other students that may be struggling or having a hard time. And that's the message of Hope Squad, is to be able to provide positive peer support, kindness, a listening ear. If you are feeling or struggling and having suicidal thoughts, that you're going to get the help that you need. And so these kids are trained in how to recognize those warning signs, and then how to refer. So they refer to a trusted adult, whether it's an ecclesiastical leader, whether it's a school counselor, whether it's an adult that they trust, that they feel safe going to. And they're able to get the help for somebody that is feeling suicidal, that's struggling with thoughts of depression, maybe some severe anxiety, and just bring kindness. And the thing that I love about the Hope Squad program is it really brings an atmosphere of unity. We're in this together. We're going to help you through it, and of kindness in your school.
And I love that message of we all struggle and we're all here. We've got your back, rather than this divisive, bullying, teasing, sarcasm, that kind of thing. I love it. And these Hope Squads are seeing great success. Is that right?
Absolutely. They are seeing huge success. In fact, our suicide rates among teenagers have gone down in Utah, because we think it's because of the peer prevention programs like Hope Squad. There are a lot of other wonderful programs, but Hope Squad is taking off right now. It's in so many elementary schools. We're starting them as young as elementary. There's one called the Junior Hope Squad, and it's 4th through 6th graders. I actually run one at our local elementary, and it's so much fun, because there are suicidal elementary students. It starts as young as 3rd and 4th grade, surprisingly. But it just offers hope and unity and kindness, that when you see somebody that's off to the side, they don't have any friends, because that's usually what you hear is, I have no friends, nobody wants to be with me or around me. And these Hope Squad kids come and they notice them and they say, hey, I've noticed that you're just hanging out by yourself. Can I stay with you? Can I hang out with you? And they include them in their circle of friends. It just brings so much unity to the school and can really foster a better environment for all of these students. And then in the secondary schools, again, it's just being the eyes and the ears of that school to notice kids that are out on the outskirts, that nobody's paying attention to, or that maybe seem to be having a hard time. Referrals are coming from Hope Squad kids into our school counselors, and they're getting resources and they're getting help. Very, very.
A beautiful system, so that they're the eyes and ears, and that first responder sweet word from someone that is a peer and not trying to, they don't think, oh, they're being adulty, they're being momish, right? But then that can be referred to that counselor who can really follow up and keep an eye on and make sure they're getting that extra sort of resource help that they might need. What a beautiful thing. Now, if parents are out there listening, how can they get a Hope Squad going in their school?
So the best thing to do is to contact Hope for Utah, and that's with a number 4. So Hope number 4 Utah, and get in touch with Kathy Bledsoe. She is fantastic in getting the resources to you so that you can get it up and running in your school. And I would approach administrators and say, this is a program that we really want in our school. Because if you've got your administrators on board, you can get it happening. And the fun thing about, I have to tell you, the fun thing about Hope Squad is it's now actually filtering into colleges, it's going into businesses, it's getting into other countries. We've opened up in Canada. It's actually even going into, it's going nationwide. It used to just be in Utah, and now it's going nationwide, and it's in several different states now.
Oh, that just gives me goosebumps and that tremendous feeling of hope. I think so many parents just feel like, what can we do? It's this scourge, this tidal wave that is hitting us, and we don't know what we can do about it. And this gives tools. I love the resources that you've shared. And just to kind of recap some highlights of what we were talking about, keep that communication door open. Put down your devices, look in their eyeballs, give them an 8-second hug. Even if they're uncomfortable and you're uncomfortable, break through that and say, listen, we're going to try it for a week because I know that this is a good thing for us to do. Talk about those difficult topics, share your own struggles and how you are working through them, not dwelling on the negative, but saying, I am doing this and this is a coping skill and I know it's going to get better. So letting them see you use good, positive things to be able to work through your own struggles. Watch for significant shifts, their body shifts, their emotional shifts, for things they'll say, those 3 things of verbal and action and situations, if there's sudden changes. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid that if you say, hey, have you been struggling lately? And they say, yeah, I have. You can follow up with, well, how serious? Have you been thinking I need some time away, like with family and friends? Or are you feeling like I want to harm myself? Don't be afraid of questions. And as you said, it's not going to plant the seed. It's just opening the door for more connection and talking. And then I love, check for the resources in your community, in your schools. Check for a Hope Squad. If you don't have one, get one started by contacting Hope for Utah with the number 4. And Wendi, if they want more information from you, Wendi Christensen, who is a licensed clinical social worker, what can they do to reach you if they have more questions or more things that they want to go deeper with?
I have a Facebook page, and it's under Wendi Christensen and the Encompass Life. But if you just look up my name, Wendi with an I, they can find me there, or you can email me, wendychristensen@gmail.com, and I'm more than happy, or even if you call me, 801-369-5029, I'm more than happy to talk about different things or resources. And one other thing that I wanted to say, Connie, before we wrap up is I think it's really important to have resources. There is an app that you can get that's online and that kids can access in all of their schools, and it's called Safe Utah. It's a wonderful app where kids can have private conversations. They can chat with someone if they're feeling down, if they're feeling suicidal, if they're struggling. And I love this app that we have. And then also there's a crisis line, a prevention line, and it's 1-800-273-TALK, TALK, for a suicide prevention line. I think it's really important to have those resources, and also to understand that if you have had somebody it's hard to save everyone, and if there has been suicide, you've been affected by it, to give yourself grace and love, because we can't prevent every single suicide. I mean, there are parents that they'll say, I never saw the signs, I never noticed, I never knew, it came from out of the blue. There are different situations, and just to be loving with ourselves, that we can't save and help every single one, but it is important to at least learn to recognize the warning signs and reach out for that help.
I love that you brought that up, because I think there's such, and that's a whole other podcast, is dealing with that tremendous guilt of why didn't I see it? What was going on? And especially for parents who feel like I was right here, like I was talking with them, I was doing all the things, we were having family time together, they had friends, like where did this come from? And again, some of those things that are hidden, or medication, or other things where that guilt can be so crushing. But I love that you share that. Give yourself grace, because every parent that I know, that I have contact with, and over 20 years I've talked to a lot of parents, a lot of moms, they are doing their best. I don't know a single one that is actively trying to hurt their children or be neglectful. So giving yourself grace, I love that. Now, one last question on that app, is it Save or Safe Utah?
Safe, SAFEUT.
Okay.
Utah.
So
most schools, SAFE, safe, for Utah.
Okay, so Safe UT for Safe Utah, but Safe UT is the app. That's a beautiful thing. And is there anything, last things you want to share before we wrap up here?
You know, I think just a final plug, I guess, for understanding that suicide is real and it's out there, and that's why we need to talk about it and discuss it and not hide from it, to actually have discussions. But again, just make sure that people around you know that it doesn't have to be an option, that it is preventable, and that the more we educate ourselves and we plug into each other instead of to our phones, unplug from our phones and engage with each other and recognize these warning signs, that we can offer solutions, and we can offer some other things that people can turn to when they're coping with such difficult moments. Just connecting with each other, just really belonging and having that sense of that safe place to belong and connect with others. Be kind.
Oh, I love it. This is just yummy stuff to think on and digest, on how we can, even if in our own families we're not seeing any of these significant signs or anything right now, is going deeper with that connection of loving and being with and being present with our loved ones and those around us. I love it. Wendi Christensen, thank you so much for taking this time today. Love your expertise and experience and the wisdom that you've shared. I know so many parents are benefiting from this that are listening. I know I have, and there's lots that I want to talk with my family about tonight. Thank you so much. And once again, thanks for joining us on Balance Redefined Radio. Remember, make this your year, the year to get balance redefined.